My father denied my raise for 3 years while I ran his entire company only to make my golden boy brother the CEO 2 weeks after his graduation. He thought I was trapped, so I made one phone call to his biggest competitor. And now they're collapsing and begging me to come back. This is where the story truly begins. And you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The fluorescent lights of the conference room flickered, buzzing with a high-pitched whine that felt like it was drilling directly into my skull. I was running on 3 hours of sleep, a half-eaten protein bar, and a cocktail of over-the-counter flu medication that was making the world feel like it was wrapped in cotton. I had a 101-degree fever. But our third-quarter logistics reports were due, and I was the only one who knew how to run the projections. I was the only one who ever had known. For 12 years, Miller Manufacturing had been my entire life. I started in the warehouse at 22, and now at 34, I was the acting director of operations. Acting was the key word. In reality, I was the COO, CFO, and head of HR all rolled into one. My father, Thomas, the founder and owner, hadn't looked at a supply chain manifest or a client contract in at least 5 years. He just cashed the checks. I was in the middle of a coughing fit, my throat raw, when my father walked in. He was 62, with a full head of silver hair and a smile that used to warm me. Now, it just looked practiced. "Isabella, perfect," he said, clapping his hands. "You're here. Good. The reports are almost done." I rasped, wincing as I swallowed. "I just need to finalize the cost per unit analysis for the new quarter." "Wonderful, wonderful," he said, waving his hand dismissively. He wasn't looking at me, but at the door, which opened again to admit my brother, Jason. Jason, at 23, was all polish and no substance. He had my father's smile, but his was plastered on, a permanent advertisement for himself. He just graduated with a business degree from a decent university, a degree I had helped pay for by deferring my own bonus again, and had been shadowing me for exactly 2 weeks. In that time, he had shown up late 6 times, taken a 2-hour lunch every day, and asked me if our main supplier, a company we'd worked with for 2 decades, was like a big deal or something. "Dad, Izzy," he said, nodding, already looking at his phone. He took the seat at the head of the table. My seat. "Thank you all for coming," Thomas said, beaming at his son. "As you know, Miller Manufacturing has been my life's work, but I'm not getting any younger, and it's time to think about the future. It's time for new blood, for a new vision." My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. This had to be it. For 3 solid years, I had formally requested a title and salary review. I was being paid less than an entry-level logistics manager at any of our competitors, all while I had personally grown our client base by 40%. Each time my father had dismissed me. "Be patient, Isabella. It's all in the family anyway. It's not about titles." I straightened my back, trying to look healthy, professional. This was the moment he would finally acknowledge me. He would finally make me president or COO. "Jason, my boy," Thomas said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "He's a natural, a real leader. He sees the future of this industry." The cotton in my head evaporated, replaced by a sudden cold silence. I watched as if from a great distance as my father continued. "So, it is with immense pride that I announced Jason Miller as the new Chief Executive Officer of Miller Manufacturing, effective immediately." The room was silent. Our 2 senior-most employees, who I had hired and trained, stared at their notepads. Jason just grinned, puffing out the chest of his brand-new $1,000 suit. "But what?" The word escaped my lips before I could stop it. It sounded small, pathetic. My father finally looked at me, his smile tightening. "Oh, and of course, Isabella will be continuing in her vital role." He checked a note card as if he couldn't remember my job. "She'll be our new head of support to help Jason transition into his leadership position." A perfect fit. Head of support. I wasn't just demoted. I was erased. I was being relegated to an assistant tasked with training the boy who had spent the last 2 weeks playing games on his phone. My fever, the exhaustion, The years of 70-hour weeks, it all coalesced into a single terrifyingly sharp point of clarity. I looked at my father, who was already turning back to his golden boy. And I looked at Jason, who was accepting imaginary congratulations. I had given them my youth, my health, and my talent. And in return, they hadn't just passed me over. They had humiliated me? The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis of the flu. It was a sickness that had been living in this company for years, and I was just now realizing I was the only one who hadn't seen it. The betrayal was worse than any sickness because I knew in that instant it was terminal. The rest of the meeting was a blur. I remember the sound of my father's voice thick with false pride and the occasional idiotic interjection from Jason about synergy and optimizing our brand. I sat perfectly still, my hands clasped so tightly in my lap that my knuckles were white. The fever was roaring back, but it was nothing compared to the glacial ice forming in my chest. I nodded. I smiled a thin, brittle smile, and when my father said, "So, you'll get him up to speed, right, Izzy?" I heard myself reply in a calm, even voice, "Of course, Dad. Whatever the company needs." Jason gave me a condescending pat on the shoulder as we left. "Don't worry, Izzy. I'll still let you handle the nerd stuff. You're great at it." I went back to my office, the large one with the whiteboard wall covered in my equations, the one I'd earned, and locked the door. For a full 10 minutes, I just stood in the dark, my forehead pressed against the cool glass of the window, watching the trucks in the loading bay. My trucks, my drivers, my schedules. My entire life had been a joke. I had sacrificed relationships, postponed starting a family, and missed countless events, all for a company that saw me as nothing more than a glorified cog. A cog they had just replaced with a shiny, useless button.
My phone buzzed on the desk.
It was a text from Marcus Shaw, the CEO of Apex Innovations. Apex was our largest and most successful competitor. Marcus was sharp, ruthless, and had been trying to poach me for nearly 2 years. I had always politely declined out of a stupid, misplaced sense of loyalty. His text was simple. He must have seen the internal announcement that had just gone out.
CEO, huh?
Bet you're thrilled. I stared at the message. The old Isabella would have deleted it or replied with a polite, "We're very excited about the new direction." The new Isabella, the one who had been born in that conference room 10 minutes ago, picked up the phone. My voice was still a low rasp, but the feverish tremble was gone, replaced by something hard. "Marcus, Isabella Miller. You free for a call?" He picked up on the first ring. "I knew this day would come," he said, his voice void of surprise. "I just didn't think Thomas would be this stupid. A 23-year-old CEO? Is he insane?" "He's confident in his choice," I said, each word precise. "He's an idiot," Marcus replied flatly. "And he's about to lose the only thing keeping that relic of a company afloat." "I saw the Q2 numbers you posted. You pulled a miracle out of that supply chain nightmare."
He knows that, right?
"He knows that I'm a very good head of support," I said. Marcus was silent for a beat. Then he laughed a dry, humorless sound.
He didn't.
"He actually... Oh my, Isabella, I'm going to send you an offer letter. Right now, I'm not even going to lowball you. It's 5 times your current salary plus a signing bonus that will cover whatever penalty you have for breaking your contract, which, by the way, I'd bet my left arm you don't even have." He was right. I never signed a formal contract. I was just family. "What's the job?" I asked, sinking into my chair. "Senior consultant, strategic operations. Your job is to make me smarter, to make my company better. You bring me your brain, your processes, and any attachments you might have that are no longer happy at Miller. You report directly to me. You set your own hours. You start whenever you want." I looked at the whiteboard at the complex logistics matrix I had designed. It was beautiful, intricate, and utterly incomprehensible to anyone but me. I had built a fortress, and I was the only one with the key. "I'll need 2 weeks," I said. "To give notice?" Marcus asked, surprised. "No," I said, a cold, slow smile spreading across my face. "To prepare my exit, I'll be in touch." I hung up. I sat in my office for the rest of the day, feeling the sickness and the betrayal wage war inside me. I was a victim, Yes, but that was about to change. My father and brother had made a critical, fatal error. They had humiliated me. They had demoted me, but they had also stupidly left me in my office. They had forgotten one crucial thing. I wasn't just the head of support. I was the architect. And I knew exactly where all the load-bearing walls were. I was going to walk out of this building, and I was going to take the blueprints with me. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in quiet, meticulous demolition. On the outside, I was the image of the beautiful, supportive daughter. I showed up, I nodded in meetings, and I began the transition. My fever broke, but the ice in my veins remained. My father, Thomas W., as in a state of paternal bliss. He saw himself as a patriarch passing the torch, a wise king securing his legacy. He had built Miller Manufacturing from nothing, a fact he never let anyone forget. He was a brilliant salesman in his day, a man who could charm anyone into a deal. But the industry had changed. It wasn't about handshakes anymore. It was about data optimization and relentless efficiency. He didn't understand the complex machine I had built to keep us competitive. He just knew that it spit out money. His devotion to Jason was baffling in its blindness. Jason was his golden boy. The son who looked like him, talked like him, and represented a doer. I, on the other hand, was my mother's daughter, quiet, analytical, and in his eyes, a permanent fixture. I was the reliable, unpaid for utility. You don't praise your furnace for running. You just expect it to work. The new CEO was every worse than I thought. Jason's entire operational strategy, which he'd proudly presented in his first all-hands meeting, consisted of two things: getting a new espresso machine for the break room and redesigning the company logo. "It just doesn't pop, Izzy," he'd said, holding up the classic, strong logo our clients had trusted for 30 years. "It needs to be more. Web3. We manufacture custom steel gaskets for the aerospace industry." "Jason," I'd replied, my voice dead flat. "Our clients don't care about Web3. They care about our parts not failing at 30,000 feet. He just waved me off. "You're thinking small. You've got to think about the brand." This was the man my father had chosen. A man whose primary skill was spending money we didn't have. He treated me with the breezy condescension of a boss who knows he's untouchable. He would forward me emails from clients I had landed and nurtured for years with a simple "handle this." He didn't even bother to read them. While he was busy getting quotes for BNAG chairs, I was working, but not for him. I didn't steal. I didn't break a single law. I just organized. First, I downloaded all of my contacts, the personal cell numbers of every supplier, freight forwarder, and client lead I had. These weren't company property. They were relationships I had built, one 3 a.m. phone call at a time. Second, I documented my systems. I wrote a transition manual for Jason. It was beautiful. It was also completely useless. It listed what needed to be done, but not how or why. It listed the software platforms, but not the master admin passwords, which of course were only ever registered to my personal email. It described the client reporting system, but not the complex custom-built macros I had written to make it function. To a novice, it would look like a comprehensive guide. To a professional, it would look like a map with no roads. And third, I made calls. I called our top 3 clients. "Just letting you know," I said, "I'm moving on from Miller Manufacturing. My last day is this Friday. I just wanted to personally thank you for your partnership over the years." The reaction was universal panic. "What do you mean you're leaving?" asked David, the procurement head of our largest account, a $10 million a year contract. "Isabella, you are Miller Manufacturing. Who's my new contact?" "I believe his name is Jason Miller," I said pleasantly. "He's the new CEO. The kid, the one who asked my assistant if we were hiring, David, was apoplectic." "This is a disaster." "Where are you going?" "I'll be taking a senior consulting role at Apex Innovations," I said. "I'm sure I'll be in touch." I didn't ask him to follow me. I didn't need to. I had just painted a very clear picture of 2 different futures for him. One managed by a child CEO, the other managed by me. On my last day, a Friday, I placed my transition manual on Jason's desk along with my company laptop and keys. He was on the phone arguing with a vendor about the color of the new espresso machine. I walked over to my father's office. He was on the phone, too, laughing, no doubt, booking another golf trip. He saw me, waved me in, and finished his call. So, all settled in with the new role, he asked, not looking up from his computer. Actually, Dad, today is my last day, I said. The silence that followed was heavy. He slowly swiveled in his chair.
What?
What did you say?
You're taking